Welcome to our VR tour of the Smederevo Fortress, one of the largest flatland fortresses in all of Europe. We begin our journey at the dam of the Jezava River, where it merges with the waters of the Danube. In the Middle Ages, these rivers served as a natural shield, making the fortress an almost impregnable stronghold. The Jezava may seem small to you now, but once, together with the mighty Danube, it formed a formidable double barrier for anyone daring to approach Smederevo's walls. Imagine trade ships and war vessels slowly making their way along the currents, while watchmen from the towers kept a sharp eye out for uninvited guests. Towering before you are the imposing walls and towers, true witnesses of Serbia's turbulent history. So are you ready to take a closer look at the fortress? Then let's move forward. New viewpoints and fascinating facts about medieval military architecture await. We are now at the Jezava Gate, one of the entrances to the Smederevo Fortress from the Jezava riverside. In medieval times, this river, along with the Danube, was a crucial defensive line. Access to the walls from the water was controlled right here. This meant that every ship, merchant vessel or fishing boat came under the watchful gaze of the guards. The gate itself was part of the unique defense system built during the reign of Despot Đurađ Branković in the 15th century. Smederevo desperately needed a new capital after the loss of Belgrade, and the fortress was constructed at an unprecedented speed. Imagine the number of hands at work, raising walls and towers to withstand all kinds of threats, from siege weapons to cunning spies. Now we enter the Smederevo Fortress through Jezava Gate and begin our tour in a clockwise direction. Look to your right. Beyond the high walls, you'll see the small town, where the despot's residence and other important buildings once stood. We'll definitely drop by later to soak in the atmosphere of medieval Serbia and even climb one of the towers. But for now, let's walk along the perimeter. The fortress wall stretches in a mighty arc, as if embracing the territory that once buzzed with life. Every step here reveals traces of grandeur, from the brickwork of the walls to the arrow slits through which sentries kept watch. Notice how this medieval fortress blends with modern city life. Right at its base, you'll find public spaces, a green park for strolling, and even a sports field with running tracks, where people come to stay in shape or play football. Who would have imagined such a sight 500 years ago? Where weapons once clashed and sentries called out, now there's laughter, jokes, and the energy of sports. This mix of history and modernity keeps the fortress alive, drawing in visitors of all ages. The past and present intertwine. While some admire the ancient walls and towers, others are jogging alongside them. So if you ever dreamed of doing a stretch surrounded by breathtaking medieval architecture, this is the place. But let's continue our tour and explore the corners of the fortress, where the spirit of the 15th century still lingers. If we were to travel back 500 years, instead of a park and a sports field, you would find yourself at a massive construction site under the command of Despot Đurađ Branković. In 1427, he urgently needed a new capital, as Belgrade was under Hungarian control, and being left without a central city was not an option. His idea was to build Serbia's new capital in record time. The entire project took around 10 to 12 years to complete. Imagine year after year as these mighty walls and towers rose, expanding with Big Town to create one of Europe's largest flatland fortresses. The effort required was staggering. Hundreds of workers, from stonemasons and carpenters to military engineers, worked tirelessly to bring it to life. Now we're standing among the ruins of an Orthodox church, which once served as the spiritual heart of the Smederevo Fortress. Built in the mid-15th century, it was an integral part of the city's life, hosting religious ceremonies, weddings, and other significant events. According to legend, the church was commissioned by Despot Branković to strengthen not only the military, but also the spiritual aspect of the new capital. However, as centuries passed, the fortress changed hands, endured Ottoman conquests, wars, and sieges. The church was repeatedly damaged and rebuilt, until it finally ceased functioning in the late 16th or early 17th century. Today, only fragments of stone walls and foundation outlines remain. Archaeologists and historians work to reconstruct its past. But even in ruins, it reminds us that medieval states relied on both faith and fortifications, defense and devotion side by side. Continuing along the walls, we come across a destroyed section of masonry. Beyond it, you'll see a railway station, which may seem ordinary now, but in 1941, during World War II, German occupying forces stored ammunition inside the fortress. One day, a massive explosion tore through the walls, ripping apart a section of the defensive ring. This event was a stark reminder that Smederevo had been caught in military conflicts not just in the Middle Ages but also in the 20th century. At this very spot was the fortress's main entrance, through which trade caravans, craftsmen and travelers entered the city. On the Danube side, closer to the western corner of the fortress, is the ship gate. Thanks to the proximity of the Danube, ships could dock at the shore and enter the fortress almost immediately. This facilitated trade, the transportation of supplies, and at times the arrival of unwelcome military guests. Today, these gates stand as quiet monuments of a bygone era, with overgrown paths and weathered stone archways. But in their time, they were crucial checkpoints, controlling every entrance and exit to protect the city from threats. Now we reach the Danube Gate, where low stone walls served as the first line of defense from the river. Though they may not seem tall, these bastions prevented enemy ships from reaching the fortress easily. Imagine how watchmen patrolled this area, keenly scanning the water's surface to spot the enemy's approach in time. Passing through this area, we find ourselves in the space between the outer walls and the main part of the fortress. This double-layered defense ensured that if anyone dared to storm the fortress from the Danube, they would face not one but two rows of fortifications. Warriors could quickly move reinforcements between the defensive lines, while on the riverside, the enemy was greeted by a low yet highly effective barrier. Looking out over the Danube, it appears peaceful now, but in the 15th century, this shore was full of life. Ships arrived with goods, and military forces prepared for defense. Today, the river's calm surface contrasts with its tumultuous history, while the remnants of walls stand as silent witnesses to Smederevo's resilience. We now stand at the entrance to Small Town, or Inner Fortress, before a wooden bridge spanning an inner canal. This was once the very heart of the fortress, home to the despot's residence and key administrative buildings, all built in an astonishing 2 years. Picture the frenzied construction of the 1430s. Walls, towers, and fortifications rising at a breathtaking pace to establish Serbia's new center after the fall of Belgrade. In just a few months, the city gained this core, the small town, securely protected not only by outer walls and towers, but also by the canal you see before you. Now we are in a special zone, known in fortification terminology as its Svinger, or interwall space. It is an area between the main and additional walls, designed so that if the enemy breached the outer defenses, the defenders would still have another fortified ring of protection. Imagine a medieval battle. An enemy squad, having broken through the first wall, suddenly finds itself trapped, immediately fired upon from higher fortifications, with their retreat cut off. This defensive tactic was used very effectively. The massive primary walls, combined with additional defense lines, made the city nearly impregnable. As you walk through the Svinger today, you can appreciate the strategic planning and feel the grandeur of the past. This was once a place where battles were decided, and now it is a perfect setting for a peaceful historical stroll. And now we find ourselves in the inner courtyard of the Smederevo Fortress's small town. Once this area housed the main buildings for the despot and his court, essential for any 15th century capital. A well, a spacious dining hall, and numerous auxiliary structures such as storerooms, workshops, and even small forges where coins were minted. Pay special attention to the beautiful windows facing the Danube. These feature distinctive wide stone seats built into the wall itself. Such windows are sometimes called window niches or recessed seats, and in some sources, the term sedilia, borrowed from church architecture, is used. The idea is the same. In the Middle Ages, both residents and guards could not only enjoy the river view, but also keep an eye on approaching boats and survey the shore. The built-in seat allowed them to sit comfortably and not miss any details of the unfolding events. This inner courtyard was once full of life. Guards lined up for the morning roll call. Messengers hurried back and forth with assignments. Cooks in the kitchen prepared meals for the entire garrison, and the courtiers of Despot Đurađ Branković leisurely discussed matters of state. The well, which you can find somewhere nearby, was not just a simple water source. It provided the fortress's inhabitants with vital water during a siege. And in the spacious dining hall, or in modern terms cafeteria, people gathered not only for meals, but also for important meetings. Military campaigns were planned here and treaties were signed. Imagine the morning sun is just rising, the Danube is visible through the window niches, and at a sturdy oak table, discussions are already underway on how to defend the city from imminent threats. Today only fragments remain, but they continue to tell their story. Every stone holds the spirit of an era when people both rested and kept vigilant watch, sitting right in the windows with a view of the river. We are now climbing the fortress walls on the river Jezava side. In a way, you're stepping onto the second floor of medieval life. This height offers a completely different perspective of the Smederevo Fortress and its surroundings. Look down. The Jezava River runs so close to the walls that in the 15th century, it could have been the first harsh challenge for everyone attempting to attack the fortress. From the height of the battlements, it seemed that invaders would have to overcome not only a water barrier, but also a relentless barrage from archers and crossbowmen. Now, however, the scene is peaceful. Only the gentle lapping of water against the shore and tourists strolling around, photographing the ancient towers. As you walk along the walls, imagine how guards once patrolled here. Staying ever watchful, they scanned the landscape, ready to raise the alarm at the slightest sign of danger. From this side, the fortress seemed especially impregnable. The thickness of the walls, combined with the natural defense of the river's waters, made Smederevo a true stronghold of the Serbian state. Today, as you move across the stone pavement, you might notice arrow slits of different shapes and widths, through which the cold autumn wind would once rush in. Quite a refreshing experience in battle conditions. But now, as you peer through these arches, you simply enjoy the views of the slow-flowing Jezava and the city beyond its banks. Let's stay here a little longer to appreciate the contrast. Once these walls saw fierce battles and the harsh daily life of the garrison. Now they are a quiet historical corner where you can touch the ancient stones and almost hear the echoes of the past. After such a walk, you can't help but wonder how many stories every meter of this fortress wall holds. We are now at the top of one of the towers of the Smederevo Fortress, rising 15 to 20 meters above the ground. From this vantage point, there is a breathtaking view of the inner courtyard, the canals, and of course the rivers Jezava and Danube. It feels as if the entire fortress lies at your feet. Just as the guards once surveyed the area from here, watching for the approach of guests or enemies. Notice how the towers are connected by walkways along the walls, forming a unified structure. This tower promenade once allowed the garrison to move quickly from one side of the fortress to another. Under the protection of stone battlements, guards could shift forces to any troubled area of defense. In the event of an impending attack, they didn't need to descend into the courtyard. Everything was designed for maximum defensive efficiency. Thank you for taking this journey with us. Our tour concludes with a stunning sunset over the Danube, viewed from the western wall of the small town, offering a breathtaking panorama. The golden rays of the sun gently illuminate the crenellated towers, making it clear that the Smederevo Fortress is not just an ancient ruin, but a living history, where every echo of stone tells of times past. We hope that you have felt the magic of this place with us and will want to return. See you next time.